and welcome back to this Star Wars Expanded Universe, narrated by Disney, Brooklyn Lucasfilm, whichever way you slice it. Legends. If you can hear the TV, apologies. Kind of a full house today, but you do what you gotta do. I finished Choices of One for the second time. How did I feel about it? There's a couple things we have to talk about before we can get to that. Starting with Galaxy Guy number 1. There is across the sands of Tatooine, across the burning sands of Tatooine, and Cammy's story. They're literally paragraphs, a couple paragraphs. You don't need it, but if you want it, it's there. Then we have Salvage, a Boba Fett one-shot. In this one-shot comic, Boba Fett finds a derelict ship that he can salvage. He goes on the ship, finds a couple prisoners that are worth a bounty, mind you, decides to take one. But all the passengers, most of them, have mysteriously died. They have these weird holes on them. What happened? You need to read to find out. Rest assured, it is a fun little Boba one-shot with some cool Boba stuff going on. And of course he gets away because he's in episode 5, but it is an interesting little tale within the Star Wars universe, and I do recommend it. It shouldn't be too hard to find, shouldn't be that expensive. It's a decent read. Now, we have something interesting. These were released on the web back in the day. You can find them easily on StarWarsTimeline.net on the internet, which is Rookies, Rendezvous, and No Turning Back by Pablo Hidalgo. Yes, Pablo Hidalgo. These are reminiscent of the web strip comics that took place a little bit before episode 3, And I don't know if you should be setting this earlier or not, because there's a villain who appears in this who, if we're putting him this far into the timeline, should be dead. So now I'm wondering if I should have put these earlier, because both Matt Wilkins and other people I've looked up have put this here for some reason. But it doesn't necessarily contradict anything if you put it earlier. But we see score from the, classic Star Wars comics. But we know at the end of those comics he died. So I'm not exactly sure. I don't know if it's a problem where I placed it or if it is a continuity error. But I'm going to assume it's more of I just need to place it earlier. But yeah, he's here. Overall, we get introduced to a couple characters. They're okay. I don't really love or hate them. I didn't really dig it that much, but at the same time, it's not offensively bad or anything. So if you want it, it's there, but it's easily a skip. Now we get to Dark Horse's River of Chaos, which is, I think, a 4-issue series. Leia does some cool things, but Leia's kind of a side character in this. We get introduced to, again, this is a weird case of Vader's quest to reveal these not cat people this time or whatever. I don't know what to describe these people are, but they're this alien race, and this human girl's been raised by them. And there's an Imperial guy who's meant to infiltrate them because they're trying to help the rebellion or something. I don't know, I didn't really care. Basically, this guy turns a good guy because he falls in love with the girl. I don't mean to be harsh or anything, but it's bland. None of the writing isn't compelling. The characters aren't fun. They're just there. The Imperial's dad, for some reason, looks like Troy Denning. I don't know why that's the thing. Troy Denning wasn't even writing stuff, I don't think, back then. for Star Wars anyway. I don't know. I think this, for a comic book, it's so utterly boring. Nothing in it compelled me at all. Main guy was getting tortured. I didn't care. I didn't care about the love story. Didn't care about the overarching plot. Leia does nothing to really warrant discussing. It is a comic that would be set around here, and if you want a story like that, check it out. But if you're going to check it out, until you know you like it, I would recommend reading it alive. And if you like it, spend your hard-earned money. Otherwise, I say you should skip. And after all that, Choices of One by Timothy Zahn. This warlord, Nusa Esfa, who I guess we can consider to be the Moriarty to Thrawn's Sherlock, is trying to gain a foothold in the unknown regions and is using the rebellion and the Empire to further his goals. Meanwhile, Mara Jade is doing her Mara Jade thing. And, the book, shows some nuance. There is bad people on the rebellion side, just as long as there is good people on the Empire side, and it's nice for that aspect, I guess. Again, I rewatched my review of this book, and I remember speaking highly of the Stormtrooper characters. They're okay. Rereading it, they're okay. Are they as great as I made them out to be in my original review? Not really. They're fine. Dare I say that if we're going to follow, soldier people that, this one probably isn't controversial. Rogue Squadron does it better. And you know what I'm going to say, don't you? Republic Commando also does a better job of camaraderie between, troopers. Those are clones, though. These are stormtroopers. That being said, they're fine. They're adequate. They're not horrible. I don't hate them. I just don't love them. They're fine. Mara Jade, again, she's a little bit more interesting here. Again, we get more of that nuance, right? Like, she's gonna kill this traitor until she learns that the only reason he betrayed the Empire is because, he was blackmailed. His family's being held hostage. So she's like, okay, well, that's an injustice. I shall correct it. Because she views her job as, morally righteous, and that everything she does is morally righteous, and that the only bad parts of the Empire are the corrupt parts of the Empire, So that's a little bit more interesting. That being said, I still find her character rather bland. Now, the highlights of this book is the entire side plot with Commander Pelion and Captain Thrawn, not a Grand Admiral yet. That entire plot is because that's Zahn's baby, that's Zahn's expertise. It works really well. I mean, I guess Mara Jade is too, but I just didn't care as much. But then everything with Thrawn and Pelion, I was invested. I'll say that completely. Even more so now that I've actually, hold on. But yeah, sorry about that. But now that I've actually read pretty much everything post Return of the Jedi, I've actually read Outbound Flight, I know who George Cardass is and everything, I actually appreciate this book a lot more than I did before. At least for the Thrawn and Pelion sections. I was genuinely invested in all of that. It's just that 70% of the book isn't those things. 70% of the book is Mara Jade doing her thing with the stormtroopers from the last book. And then the whole other half that we have to talk about is the Han, Luke, and Leia plot, which shouldn't be here. It's so pointless and useless, and Zahn doesn't know how to write these characters in this time frame. Han's especially mean. Leia's a nothing person here, besides bantering with Han because they're gonna fall in love. And Luke is whiny. Where is this idea that he's whiny right now? Was he whiny in episode 4? Besides the Tashi power stations, I said this again in the Allegiance one. He cried when Ben died. Okay? That makes sense to me. He goes from that to going to the Rebel base, helping destroy the Death Star. No whining. Even if we're just going by the movies alone, where do you see whining, Zahn? And then, if you take into account all of the expanded universe, you got the comic books from the 70s and 80s and all that, you know, the classic Star Wars. Luke is not a Jedi yet, but he is reliable, he is a true hero, he does what's right, and he tries to help people. There's only a few times where I've seen him genuinely struggle with the dark side or with bad emotions, but he is a kind, compassionate, and helpful person. He's not whiny. He's one of the heroes of the rebellion. People look to him. People respect him. So I don't know. We're in the fathomless part of Zahn's mind. He gets, oh, well, he's whiny during this era. No. You're wrong, Zahn. I'm sorry. And then, again, I just find Han so... There's the facade he exudes, where, you know, he's kind of a jerk. But we get in... This is a book, so we get internally in his head. And he just thinks things I just don't feel at this point in time he'd be thinking. Now, the only thing... Han's whole arc is... Oh, I've been helping the rebellion for, you know, like 6 to 8 months now. And I'm not officially part of it. I just keep helping. But I don't like that they're not including me in the debriefings, even though we've seen them do that in comics and stuff. And I'm really annoyed about that. And literally, General Rican's like, then join us, and I will literally give you all access to every bit of information. Every other thing that's come out before this is essentially made it be like, yeah, Han is friends with them. He's now a part of it. But this book, because it's Zahn, he has to be the one to finally show that Han accepted that responsibility. Get out of here, Zahn. And let's get into another thing that I've talked about before that this book does. So, for instance, near the end of the book, Pelion and Thrawn are talking to each other. Oh, is that a contradiction? Well, no. Because he's talking to him, you know, over the intercom. So he's talking to him on the phone. Even though it's clear that the way they present it in the Throne Trilogy, which is Zahn's own work, by the way, I know that he doesn't play well with others, because Zahn seems to think that he's some sort of god who could do whatever the hell he wants. But it's his own work that he's, you know, treading the lines on contradicting, which is that Thrawn and Pelion meet at a certain time. But here it's like, well, they didn't actually meet. They didn't see each other face to face, but they did talk on the phone. So it's not a contradiction. But the more egregious one, the one that's more of an issue for me, is the Luke and Mara stuff. Why, Zahn? You know that they can't meet because you wrote the original trilogy where they officially meet. But in this novel, they're in the same building each other. Oh my goodness, are they gonna meet before you told us that they meet? Oh my goodness, she's on a high balcony. They can't see each other very well. They look like ants to one another, but they're like they can see each other right there. But even more egregiously, at one point she actually talks to him. Why? See, Matt Wilkins has also stressed this, and you know, this is all speculation, but I think it's warranted. I think Zahn thinks he's a big man. I think he thinks that he's a top dog. of writers in general, let alone Star Wars. He thinks he's the pinnacle, okay? And only a few people are worthy of being acknowledged by him or collaborating with him. One of those people being Michael Stackpole. But other than that, when he wrote the Throne Trilogy, we had the Jedi Prince series, a couple comics here and there that were set during the Rebellion era. As for post movies, he was essentially free to do whatever he wanted. And so he felt freedom to write as he pleased within a universe that he loved, to write his own story. Then he did The Hand of Thrawn, which concluded a lot of the Bantam era, but it was still mostly his work. But he was nice enough to include references to other things. And then he bailed for a bit. Then he wrote Survivor's Quest, I guess. But by the time he reached Outbound Flight and Allegiance and Choices of One, he was in a different world with the EU. At this point, there were stories that were established. There was a hierarchy of canon. If you can hear that, I apologize. That's how I feel when I read these books. But now he's constrained, he's constricted on what he can do because there's a hierarchy of canon, opposed to what canon fans will tell you that the EU was just a jumbled mess. No, they enforced it. Even with Timothy Zahn, to an extent, even though they're more lenient with him because he's Timothy Zahn. And so he writes these books, and he gets frustrated that he's not allowed to do whatever the hell he wants. So he completely does a big F you to everybody. They're like, oh, look, I'm not contradicting it. I'm not contradicting it. I almost am, but I'm not. With scoundrels having Lando there. All fix it and post. All give another reason for why they dislike each other. Screw everything that Asa Crispin did. This book. Oh, Luke and Mara, they're gonna meet. No, because it's your own work. They can't meet. I can't even understand, not reading everything, so contradicting something else, or, not caring what other people wrote, even though that's also messed up, because a lot of people in the expanded universe were willing to, collaborate. But it's his own work that he wrote. And again, I know I've really dogged on Timothy Zahn, okay? I've praised the Throne Trilogy. I think it's not perfect and it gets overhyped, but as a sequel to the movies, I think it's almost perfect because it feels like a sequel to the movies. It really, really does. And I have nothing but high praise for that trilogy. But everything else he's written has pissed me off or bored me in some way, shape, or form. And I don't know what it is. Outbound Flight was good. Hand of Thrawn was good. Survivor's Quest is okay. Everything else that he's touched, besides short stories and stuff, and collaborations with Michael Stackpole, have upset me. So I don't know. But that was one of my biggest grievances with these books. Overall, the plot is okay. All the plots kind of converge on this whole crisis with the Warlord. The Rebellion plot, Mara Jade and the Stormtrooper plot and the Thrawn plot, they all kind of converge on that essential issue. Like I said, I have nothing positive to say about the OT character section. I don't care about it. The Mara Jade stuff, she's being Mara Jade, but as I keep going through it, Mara Jade as a character is not interesting before the Emperor dies. The concept is interesting, but what Zahn has written about her before the Throne Trilogy is not compelling. I don't care. It's exactly what I expected her to be doing, which is cool, but her character is flat until her character development is allowed to commence. Maybe if I saw her actually beginning her career as the Emperor's Hand, maybe if I saw her as a child being, morphed by Palpatine, that could be something. But at this point, she just is the Emperor's Hand, and she does exactly what I would think she would do. compelling. That being said, as I said, Pelion, Thrawn stuff, the George Cardass stuff, great. Other than that, I don't know, man. I don't really, I don't care for this duology very much. Do I appreciate this one more than I did the first time? Yeah, because there's a lot of things I understand now that I didn't before, like George Cardass, for example. But I mean, are they horrible books? No, they're just kind of boring and annoying because Zahn has to be Zahn. But I don't know, a lot of people like these. A lot of people like the new Thrawn books, so what do I know? Zahn's clearly loved for a reason. But I couldn't get into like 70% of this book. 20% of it, I was fully engaged. I was in it. Rest of it, not so much. That's pretty much my thoughts. If you don't want spoilers, I'm going to talk about some stuff. Otherwise, time to skedaddle. Up next, I got more Galaxy Fear, so something fun to look forward to. Anyway, spoilers. If you don't want them, leave. So, something I completely forgot about in this book because I didn't care about George Cardass because I didn't know who it was back when I read this for the first time. George Cardass is dying. I also never put two and two together. He started up a smuggling operation and helped the Empire for a while. And he has a lieutenant, or somebody that's like his successor. And that successor is Talon Card, which I completely forgot about. So that was a really cool connection. That first like big scene with Cardass and Thrawn was really great. I really enjoyed that whole section. And I enjoyed Nusa Espa. He was all right. He didn't die by the end of the book, but he's a nice foil to Thrawn. Of course, Thrawn has to win because he's Thrawn, but it was nice to see somebody who could like challenge him a bit with intelligence and stuff. So that was cool to see. Also, him interacting with Vader, that was cool, as brief as it was. And I, of course, love just seeing Thrawn do his thing. Pelion's an interesting case because he's just the only example I can make. If you know Better Call Saul, he's kind of like Howard. He's just such a morally righteous person, despite being on the Empire side. And he's such a fascinating and wonderful character. Even here, he gives a couple of those like great wisdom lines. And you just love the guy. But that's basically it. I really have nothing to say about the rebel portion. I don't like Luke's characterization. I think it's really flawed. I don't think Zahn gets it. There's literally nothing to say about Leia. She's not really a character. She just is flirting with Han because episode 5. And Han is just annoying. But yeah, and as I said for the Stormtroopers, they're fine. But there's nothing that really sticks out to me about them enough to like mention here. So I'm gonna leave it there, guys. If you enjoy this video, give it a thumbs up, sharing episode a ton, and I'll see you when I have more fun with Galaxy Fear. Till then.